No?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I thank to all the participants for joining with the same energy and enthusiasm for the session. Hello.
Yeah, you're audible, Banishri. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, my extreme, no, yeah. My apology to all the participants for the delay. Let us start the session. Maybe we are good at subject knowledge. Hello?
You're audible, you're audible.
Yeah, I request the audience to please mute. I request the audience to please mute yourself. Okay. Maybe we are good at subject knowledge. Maybe we are good at handling things. But we often face a lot of assumptions and misunderstandings which lead to errors in effects. We face these situations and difficulties because of poor listening skills at workplace. Of course, it's a challenge to work with people who just don't listen our words. Dealing with colleagues who don't listen is both hard and frustrating. Maybe we read in some books or newspapers about some tactics to deal with the problems. But are these tactics really benefited for us to encourage our colleagues to listen better? Should we talk to them about their poor listening skills? So, today our resource person, Dr. K. Sunita Reddy, will help us or guide us what's the best way to deliver the message and how to handle these delicate situations. So before Dr. K. Sunita Reddy, she is working as a professor and HOD in SV Engineering College, Tirupati. She did her PhD in English Literature, SV University, Tirupati. She is working as a professor with proven career track of many positive academic outcomes and organizational amendments. She has more than 20 years of experience in guiding and directing engineering graduates in acquiring communication skills and soft skills. She implemented and developed several communication strategies in the Communication Skills Lab for many colleges. She is associated with many professional and academic bodies. She is a member of Board of Studies for 3 reputed colleges such as AITS, NBKRIST and RGMCT. She is selected as a master trainer by British Council and successfully accomplished each English communication skills project for faculty and students. She is nominated as Nodal Officer for AFSHE, British Council Communication Skills Project in the year 2000 sessions and also delivered many lectures as a resource person and key national and international conferences, workshops. She obtained JNTUA, Krishna University recognition as research guide for MPhil and PhD program. Under her able guidance, 12 scholars got MPhil and 4 scholars awarded with doctorate. She is instrumental in setting up different clubs such as E+ Club, Lee Club, that is English Club, Science Club, Mathematical Club, etc. She handled soft skill sessions to undergraduates in liaison with Placement Cell and JKC. She received many awards for her superlative efforts towards the reach of education. She received the Best Teacher Award consecutively for 5 years in appreciation of her service rendered for the institution and students. Today, our resource person, Dr. K. Sunita Reddy, is with us to guide us on how to handle the delicate situation and what is the best way to deliver the message and how to overcome the barriers of listening skills and improve our listening skills. She is going to deliberate on the topic accentuating attentive attributes, that is active listening skills at workplace. Madam, we are welcoming you
for that elaborate. Thank you, Vanishri, for that elaborate introduction. And to start with, greetings of the day to all the delegates. Hope you all had an assumptuous lunch. Yeah. And in the morning session, we had Dr. Samuel speaking about positive attitude. And we thought if we have the session on listening the very first day, maybe this would help us out to gain with more what we would be going through in the phase 2 sessions. So let's get in with the topic, accentuating attentive attributes, and listening is the mother of all speaking. Now, the question is, isn't it that man has been using language as a tool of communication for centuries? And of course, this has enabled him to interact with the environment and to regulate his social behavior. Civilization, man has been trying to exploit the flexibility and dynamism of the language for the conduct of his day-to-day affairs. Our social advancement has to be matched with the development of efficient techniques of communication to sustain the tempo of growth. Though there are a number of means of communication, language is the most widely used instrument. We communicate meaning through a sophisticated system of symbols. And today, it is one of the most prized possessions that we all have. History of wisdom, a propeller for the advancement of knowledge, and a telescope to view the vision of the future. But in this attempt, we have only been partially successful. Now I have a question for you all. To get on with, Ramu worked at a butcher's shop. His height was 5'6". His waist was 36 inches. He worked 10 hours a day and earned 50 rupees per day. Again, I repeat the question. Ramu worked at a butcher's shop. His height was 5'6". His waist was 36 inches. He worked 10 hours a day and earned 50 rupees per day. Now the question is, what did he weigh? What did he weigh? The same question when asked in one of my class, everyone started calculating Ramu's weight by multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting, and finding relation between the digits. And you know what he weighed? He weighed meter. You know what he weighed? He weighed meat. The question was not what was his weight. It was what did he weigh?
Hello?
The question was not what was his weight. It was what did he weigh. Now you all have to accept with me, whether you like it or not, that though we as humans in the society have progressed with remarkable speed, the use of language for communication is still not free from ignorance, prejudice, and superstition. We all know that linguistic skills of expression consists of speaking and writing for sending messages, and listening and reading for receiving them. Generally, we spend more time on listening than on speaking in oral communication. But do we all accept the fact that people listen more than they speak, read, or write? Listening is the oldest and the commonest channel of communication. While millions of people never write to communicate, everyone uses face-to-face channel. In a sense, it is the easiest of all the channels of communication. In another sense, it is the most difficult, but only a few master it. We all make a mess of it. Ability to produce words effortlessly does not make one a good oral communicator anymore. It is just like an ability to type words fast and correctly does not make one a good writer. There is something special about face-to-face oral communication. People often travel long distances to communicate through face-to-face channel, even when they have access to the other channels. No other channel can match its depth, range, and warmth. The secret of excellence of face-to-face channel lies in active listening. Listening actively and attentively is perhaps the best compliment one can pay to another human being. Now imagine that a student in your class during the lecture involuntarily keeps yawning. This behavior would obviously put you off as a faculty. Your evaluation of that student would be negative, and you might not want to go ahead with your class. Of course, we would definitely not want someone to when we are speaking to them. The essence of listening skills for effective communication has been recognized almost a century. Rankin conducted a study and found out that listening skill was the most dominant skill for the mode of human communication. And we all have to accept listening skill occupies almost 50% of our daily communication. Also, every study conducted regarding the language skill acquisition has proved that when we communicate, we gain 45% of language competence from listening, 30% from speaking, 15% from reading, and 10% or 9% from writing. With the highest percentage of involvement in the exchange of information in effective communication, listening has to be considered as a language forerunner. Well, research corroborates the view that human beings spend more time listening than speaking. Yeah, it's an accepted fact. It is a skill used by all of us, but we get little training on this. Even this we have to accept. On the other hand, right from our school days, we are all formally trained in all the other three language skills, namely reading and writing. It is primarily so because listening is usually taken for granted. It is presumed that by making a child sit while being spoken to, we can also make him or her to listen. So the child sits but does not listen to the teacher or the parent. If we look at the percentage of the time we spend on each type of communication, look at listening stands at the end, which is 45%. Speaking, where we are given training for 1 or 2 years, it has 30%. And to 8 years on reading, and its importance is only 16%. And the last one, from the day we enter the school, we are asked to write alphabets. We are asked to repeat and repeat writing with these alphabets. And it goes with 12 years of training, and the percentage of importance is just 9. The famous American novelist Ernest Hemingway paid much importance to listening as a tool for learning and had remarked, "I like to listen. I have learned a great deal from listening carefully. Most people never listen." While attending a lecture or a talk, some of the listeners just tune out or get caught up in an internal dialogue trying to translate a specific word, or think of something more interesting happening somewhere else outside the room. So we are all physically present in the place, but mentally we have crossed a long way. As the studies reveal, listening comprehension lies at the heart of language learning, but it is the least understood and least researched skill in language learning. And the listening process is often disregarded, especially in second language acquisition. Listening is quite similar to reading, as it involves the reception and decoding of verbal messages from another person. The messages should be interpreted correctly. For example, in a biology class, the teacher asked the students to refer Origin of Species by Darwin. And one student sincerely rummaged into the library, searching in the bookshelves for a book, Oranges and Peaches. The teacher happened to say origin of species, and the student understood as oranges and peaches. And to his utter dismay, he could not find it. When narrated as a story, this sounds funny, but in reality, we all have to accept we regularly come across such situations where confusion arises because of poor listening. And next, we have to go in with what is the purpose of listening? Listening is an everyday affair, as said. We listen to people for various purposes: to learn, to compare opinions, to have a better understanding, to earn money, to secure a benefit, to relieve boredom, to be polite, to be liked, and sometimes just to plain nose. In general, we tend to listen to things related to our interests, attitudes. We prefer not to listen to unrelated subjects. In the professional world, listening takes on a more significant function. To talk to it on specific, though there are so many manuals and other materials, employees of an organization tend to gather a lot of information about their jobs by listening to their colleagues. In addition to formal communication, informal interpersonal transactions play a significant role in the performance of day-to-day transactions. Harmonious personal relationships which smoothen these transactions through effective listening. And listening plays a definite role in the process of decision making, especially for people like judges and police department. Very often, company executives work on their listening skills and seek the advice of the others before deciding on the course of the action. And an adequate, relevant, and proper response is not possible without listening carefully to the stimulus. So, in the name of listening, what people do most of the time is hearing. Are these two different from each other? Of course. Let us see how these two can be distinguished. There is a Zen riddle which asks a question: is there a sound in the forest if a tree crashes to the ground and there is no one to hear? I repeat the question: is there a sound in the forest if a tree crashes to the ground and there is no one to hear it? What is your answer for this riddle? Definitely, everyone would accept or go with me. Listening is something more than hearing. We hear numerous little sounds and noises during the day without registering most of them, like birds chirping, cars honking when you are on the roads, kids playing, and people talking when you are moving in the corridors are examples of such sounds. We do not pay attention to these sounds because we are not interested in them or because these sounds are not meaningful to us. And hearing is simply a physiological process in which frequency of sound waves produced make our eardrums vibrate. These vibrations, I'm not getting into all the technical terms of doctor uses. These vibrations then are carried to the inner ear. Whereas these vibrations are translated into electrochemical impulses and further they are carried to the central auditory system of the brain. The brain then recognizes these impulses and identifies them as sounds. The process is very fast, not what as I have said, and automatic and requires hardly any effort. In fact, we are not able to stop it unless we use some earplugs of some kind to block the oral passage. Now, listening on the other hand, first involves paying close attention to the sounds that come in combinations and contrasts, which form the speech. It is not only paying attention to the other person's words for listening, but also looking for tone and facial expressions. The nature and intent of the speech is then interpreted and inferred internally by the brain with a decoding system as the listener is tuned. Technically, it would be correct to say that once the process of interpretation and inference begins, listening occurs. As simple as that. The process, in short, involves analyzing speech sounds, organizing them into recognizable patterns, interpreting the patterns, and then understanding the message by inferring the meaning. To be more clear with hearing, it goes like this. It happens in most of our families. The wife serves breakfast to her husband and talks about the list of things that he has to buy while coming home in the evening. You know what the husband does? He doesn't register all of them in his mind. And obviously, in the evening, when he has to get with all the things, he calls his wife asking for what she had said in the morning. And now he listens. So that's the difference between hearing and listening. Now to get in detail with what the listening process is all about, listening is not an act, but a process. It is more than hearing, sometimes goes beyond hearing. Hearing is necessary, but not a sufficient condition. Listening involves hearing, but with attention and concentration. It is a highly active process because to be a part of it, you need to be extremely active and alert. In fact, becoming a good listener requires how listening process happens. Essentially, I call it as a cognitive process because listening involves the following stages. And the first stage is something like receiving or sensing or selective stage. And you know what the listener does at this stage? He has a physical hearing of message and selects among the multiple stimuli the only one that seems to be important for him or her. Then comes the interpreting stage. So it is a decoding stage. The listener decodes the message. It is at this stage that the listener is faced with multiple barriers. It could either be semantic, linguistic, psychological, emotional, as well as environmental. The third comes the evaluating stage. A great deal of critical listening takes place at this stage. The listener assigns a meaning to the message, draws inferences, takes an overview of the messages, and seeks accuracy of information and evidence. Often, the listener is disturbed by prior experiences, beliefs, and emotions, which often come in the way of the evaluation process. Then we get to the responding stage. At this stage, the listener is ready to respond and react. This stage is important of the speaker because the receiver shows his or her rejection or acceptance or understanding or even indifference, though his or her nonverbal cues. The last one is the remembering or the memorizing stage. This is the final stage of listening. Effective listening helps listeners retain chunks of what they have heard. Memorability means the quality or state of being memorable is an important index for listeners to test how much has been stored in their memory banks. Unfortunately, to say, no matter how brilliant a speaker is, most of the listeners can retain only 10 to 25% of a talk or a presentation that day after. That is why good speakers must always make it a point to organize their matters sequentially, supported by good visuals, so that the listeners have a higher recall rate at the end. You look at how the listening makes a person to remember with the things. We have a small video for you now. Yeah. So it looks like that we have some trouble with the audio part.
Ma'am, 1 second, madam. Please hold.
It's okay, Vanishri. We'll just share with the video. It's okay, ma. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Slide. Yeah, here we have. It's okay if we are unable to look at the video. Here's something slide where we talk about hearing and listening. I have just made it like this. It's to make things clear. It's like participation and involvement. So hearing is participation and listening is involvement. And I would like to share a small story with you related to this. You know, an old couple was staying in a farmhouse in London, and they had all the animals in their farmhouse, which includes ducks, chickens, pigs, cows, horses, and many more. They were planning to invite their friends for breakfast the next day and were planning for a menu. The wife said, okay, we should make some hamburgers for the guests because they would love to have them. And the husband said, okay. So the menu for the next day breakfast for the friends was hamburgers and omelets. Now, this was overheard by the chicken and the pigs that were there in the farmhouse. And the chicken was so sad because it has to lose few of its eggs tomorrow. Now the pig was very angry. You know what it said? Yours is just a participation because you are losing just your eggs, but mine is because I will be killed tomorrow. So with this, I think it's as clear as participation and involvement, so goes with hearing and listening. So hearing, you are just participating, and listening means you are getting involved. And usually, we come across certain myths related to the listening. To better understand what it takes to be a good listener, we must discard the following myths associated with listening. And the first myth is, we do not have to concentrate. Listening comes naturally. You know, the truth? Being a good listener requires a conscious effort. You must keep your mind constantly engaged and in gear. Now let's go to the second one. I'm a good listener because I always get the facts and figures straight. You know, the truth is, you may be a selective listener. You listen to the facts and figures, but You do not hear or comprehend the rest of the information, such as questions raised, emotions of the speaker, context, opinions, and ideas discussed. Okay, just because I've said you have to be a good listener, you have to ask questions. The third one would be, you should interrupt when someone is speaking. Now, a good listener does not hesitate to interrupt if the speaker's information is unclear. But you must be an inquisitive listener to be an effective listener. I repeat, you must be an inquisitive listener to be an effective listener. And the next might be, okay, to be a good listener, I have to paraphrase everything a speaker says. So it's like this. If you constantly parrot people's statements back to them, they will show you are slow, or even worse, they might also think that you are proud. It is good to repeat only key information and ask the speaker to verify it, but do not rephrase all the comments. Getting on to the fifth one, communicating to people. So this is a common misconception many people have. So the common logic is more communication means more talking. But the truth is, the problem is that it doesn't work that way. Not merely about talking to people, but people also have to listen. And it's a continuation, myth 6 is a continuation of the myth 5. Talkative people communicate more than calm and silent people. Sorry to say, to be a good speaker, you have to be a good listener. Okay, so when I said you have to be a good listener, you might come to the seventh myth, only intelligent can be effective listeners. No, listening is a cultivated or a trained seasonal behavior. And the last which I love is, speaking consumes more energy because we all have become calorie conscious. Let me reveal and make some people happy. Active listeners spend as many calories as the same what speaker spends. So the same energy as the speaker spends, the active listener also spends. And coming on to the last one, myth 9. Speakers can make their audience listen to them 100%. And sure, I bet you all would agree with me. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So these are some of the common myths which we all have to understand. And the next important thing which we have to discuss about is, why is it that we all are poor listeners? What is the anatomy of poor listening? Why is it that our listening is not as good as it ought to be? Research has established that our brain is capable of processing 500 to 750 words a minute, while people only speak 120 to 150 words a minute. That we are able to use just 25% of our mind power and 75% used while we listen to others. The listener uses only a part of the brain to listen. They use the brains to think of other things that interest them. And the result is dissipation of attention. And this leads to poor listening. Consequently, most of us are more interested in speaking than listening to others. So, to make with the things, I would just talk about how the world or the word differs when we do not listen properly. And I think you all know he is Swami Chinmayananda. He is well known for his discourses in Bhagavad Gita. And the other side of him is he also is known for his wit, wisdom, and command over English language. In one of the discourses, he happened to say, before marriage, life is incomplete. and after marriage life is. And he paused, waiting for the audience to simply supply as expected. Many in the audience, no, the married people started giving answer, it is a disaster, finished and all that. Now, when he was talking to IIT students actually, who were doing the graduation, and many of them were not married. So after marriage life is, and he happened to give a pause, and the audience started shouting, complete. Swamiji smiled and said, as one of our participants happened to say, finished. So it is just for fun. I go with the next, where I speak about what Swamiji happened to say. So I repeat it again. It is difference, the word of difference. So when you marry the right woman, you are complete. When you marry the wrong woman, finished. And the next two lines also have to be read very carefully. When your wife catches you with the other women, you are completely finished. And when your wife likes shopping, and most of the men know the answer, you are finished completely. It is true, when our listening is poor, we do think of things other than what the speaker is telling. The explanation that we use the brain's spare capacity to think of other things, however, is not quite satisfactory because it equates a part with the whole. Face to face, waiting for a friend to arrive. There has been some disruption in the rail traffic as usual, and many trains are running late. While you are at the station, you hear dozens of announcements about the arrival and departure of trains. So number 747, Venkateswara Express arriving from Hyderabad to Tirupati is shortly arriving on platform number 2. So this might be the announcement. So we do not know how short is that short, but when we are listening to the announcements. So there are dozens of announcements about the arrival and departure of trains. When you have heard, say, about 50 announcements, if you are given a test to see how much information you have retained, you will not be surprised to get a very low score. You are most likely to get right answers to the question on your friend's train and on a few trains that are not relevant to you but stand out for some reason. You may have nothing more than a vague recollection of how late most of the other trains are. You will have switched off your listening as soon as you realized that a particular announcement was not about your friend's train. And this is natural. There is absolutely no need for you to find out and store in your brain space arrival details of the trains that don't concern you. You filter out the noise, the information that does not interest you at all. In other words, you listen intently to just a part of what you hear, only the part that interests you and only the part that is relevant to you. Superficial listening is more than enough to monitor the announcements. And you know, our body language changes dramatically when what is relevant to us enters our mind's radar screen. Our listening becomes intense. The ears struggle to disentangle the announcement from the myriad other strands of sounds we hear along with it in the railway station. So we have so many noises coming out or the sounds coming out, and we try to pick out what is necessary for us. The intensity weakens again when we realize that an announcement relevant to us, what